Okay, I just want to welcome everybody out to our seminar today for United Angels Foundation. My name is Mark Leck. I'm the founder and president of United Angels. And I wasn't going to talk today, but I decided to take a minute just here at the beginning. Now, we do have a lot of technical stuff going on here that we're a little bit new with. We've got, how many, like 40 plus attendees remote at the moment. And so everything we're doing in this room today is being recorded. We're even trying to make it possible so that people who are participating remote, when we do our live Q&A, can either ask us questions through the app, through GoToWebinar, or we may even be able to allow them to speak, and we'll hear it like the voice of God coming through this room, you know, and we'll have great Q&A there. I just recently sent out an email that should have gone out to all of our members, and part of that email was to announce that there's been a lot of changes going on within the foundation. And what I'm excited about tonight is that tonight's webinar is representative of some of those changes. The most important thing in the video, in my mind, that I hope people got to see is the discussion about the expanded vision of the foundation. And while we started as a foundation that focused on helping parents at the moment of birth and diagnosis of a special needs, what we've realized as a board and as an organization is that we want to be there to help the parents at each of the major life phases. And tonight's seminar really relates to that transition to adulthood. My daughter, Aubrey, who's 12 years old, she's several years out still from doing this, but I haven't signed up yet for DSPD. And this has a lot of application for me and my family. And part of why I haven't done it is I heard lots of rumors. I heard stuff like there's this huge long waiting list, or you'll never get any benefits anyways, and all sorts of other stuff. So this seminar, my wife was telling me beforehand, take really good notes. And my response was, it's being recorded. So hopefully that'll be really good notes. But I think that this is a really important topic, and I think it's an important subject that affects all of us as parents of kids with special needs. The other thing I wanted to mention is that we have a new program director, Sylvia Lamb. And as you guys get to meet and interact with her, I think you will be so impressed with her. She is an amazing individual. She's so compassionate, and she is really on the ball. And she helped work with Debbie and put this together and has really made tonight possible and made it happen. So she and Debbie both deserve a huge round of applause before we get going here. And I'm going to turn over the mic to Sylvia and let her introduce Debbie and maybe a little more specifics on what we're doing here tonight. The camera's on you right here.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. We have a really great seminar ready for you. We're going to go over a lot of very important, very useful information. And as Mark said, we're going to have a Q&A session. We've allotted about 15 minutes at the end. So if you have a question that comes up while Debbie is presenting, if you could just jot it down and hold the questions for the end, because we have a lot of information and we want to make sure that we can get through all of that before we start going into questions. We are also recording, as I mentioned, as you're coming in. So hello to everyone at home. Thank you so much for joining us. This technology is a little new for us, so if we have any glitches, I thank you in advance for your patience. And we're going to go ahead and get started here. We have Debbie Johansson, who is our in-house parent transition specialist. She has a wealth of knowledge, and I'll tell you a little bit more about her in just a moment. We also have Callie Calvero from DSPD. She started out in intake 4 years ago, and now she works primarily with folks that are on the wait list. So she'll also be joining us at the end of the presentation to help answer any specific questions that you may have. And then also at the very end, I'm going to go ahead and swap out that sign-in sheet with an interest list. So if you find that you have a lot more questions and you'd like to schedule a private consultation with Debbie, we're going to take down your information. If you're joining us at home, we'll have an email address for you to send that to. And then that way we can create a list and make sure we can get everyone on our new Transition to Adulthood program. As Mark mentioned, and as you saw in his video message, I want to give you a little bit of background about the vision and the mission for United Angels Foundation. And we really have this very clear goal to support parents and families of individuals with special needs. And really, what does that mean? We found that the best way to support the individual is by supporting their parents. And we want to make sure that we can empower our parents to have the tools that they need for every major transition through life. So we started out with our Angels Among Us program doing birth visits at the time of diagnosis or in young childhood. And the majority of our programs started out with birth, young childhood, and then we've been able to expand this into transition into public education and navigating through the season of life. And then we realized there's a great need to help, after that happens, what do we do now that we're exiting from public school? And so we've come up with, here we go, our Special Needs Life Planning Program. So you can see that we're really looking to create programs and services that are going to help at each one of these major life transitions. So we've got our diagnosis and early childhood, public education and adolescence, and then what happens after that as we go into adulthood, post-secondary education, vocational rehab, and then just guardianship and all the different things that come with independent living. So one of our new programs is this Transition to Adulthood program that we've had as a pilot program for the past 2 years. And without any advertising, without any marketing, just word of mouth, we have helped over 45 families. Debbie has come to their house or met here in the offices, and she will go through this huge binder that is filled with great information. She'll go through this whole binder with you and help you figure out which programs and services are going to be the most beneficial for you and your family, not only which ones, but how to sign up, what the application process is, and then she'll actually help you one step further than that by helping you expedite the process. So you know the specific people to call, not the 1-800 number, but actual people, direct lines to folks, and taking notes so that way you can make sure you have all the information when questions come up, because all of these different agencies are not sharing your information. They're not talking to each other. So there's a lot of work on your end, but Debbie is here to help that be much easier for you and to help facilitate that. So we found, if we've served close to 50 families in 2 years without any sort of advertising, without telling people about it, just, word being spread, that we really need to take this from a pilot program into a full-service United Angels Foundation program for you. And we're doing a few things right now to finalize that, but we are very close to getting ready to launch this. So, like I said, at the end of tonight's presentation, sign up, get your name on that interest list, and Debbie will come and meet with you. She'll follow up and help you get all the services that you need. So Debbie Johansson, let me tell you a little bit about her here. So Debbie is not only just a wonderful person, but she is an expert in this field. She has over 14 years working with the Alpine School District in transition programs. So she's been working in special education and helping graduates from school get ready to go and move into adulthood. She spent 3 years with Utah Community Supports and Services as a job developer for individuals with disabilities. And then DSPD, the topic we're talking about tonight, she actually served on the committee to rewrite the application. From what I understand, it used to be 11 pages long, and it was just very long, very daunting, and Debbie worked with the committee to get it down to 4 pages, is that right? So she's an expert in filling this out and how to navigate this system to make it easier and quicker, so it's just, you start getting services that you need a lot sooner. And then Debbie's also a mother of 4 and a grandmother of 13, and she's not only just a great expert, and we're so happy to have her here, but United Angels Foundation has a very special place in her heart. One of her 4 children is an individual with special needs, and so Debbie has gone through this process. She's gone through many of the different life stages, and she's worked with all these agencies not only as a professional, but as a mother. So I'm going to go ahead and invite Debbie up, and I'll let her share a little bit more about herself before we get going.
Does the clicker work?
I'm going to point it right up back there, though.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. It has been so much fun to get to know Sylvia. She's marvelous. She is just the nicest, easiest person to get along with. This is my angel. My angel, Katie, she's 30 years old. She is just a fun-loving kid. She was born with cerebral palsy, intellectual disability, and hearing loss. We didn't think she'd walk or talk, but she has just had a lot of fun in life, and she has a boyfriend. She worked at Costco for 12 years. She's just the bomb. She's just fun. If I mention her to somebody as, this is my daughter's special needs, she'll go, I'm not that special. She's just real fun. We went through the transition process with the diagnosis, devastating diagnosis time, going through IEPs and navigating that, and it's just a hard thing. But then we got a little closer about age 14. Age 14 is when Social Security, 14 to 25, is the transition age for Social Security anyway. Different agencies say different ages, but that's Social Security. So at 14, I thought, okay, I'm going to start navigating this system, figure out what's what. And so I began. It was hard. It was really confusing. The acronyms will kill you. This is actually a statement of how to go through the transition process using acronyms. You start with the IEP, and if possible, get an ICD-10 code, because that will help you get onto DSPD and possibly get a PA1 or RP1 code. But don't forget to get SE, because you need that to do VR. And then VR will write an IPE, not an IEP, IPE, so that you can choose a CRP to do SE. And when you're on the DSPD list, then you will qualify for SWI, that will do job coaching. And then don't forget to go to UWIP so they can tell you how to work and keep your SSI, not SSDI, but SSI. The acronyms are just horrendous. And I was almost embarrassed. What are they talking about? I must be really lame. It was horrible. Do you agree with this? Is this a difficult thing to get through all of the acronyms? I noticed that these agencies, in my mind anyway, such as, I should name the agencies that are kind of the front end of transition. Social Security often deems one eligible for others, so we like to kind of say that one first. Then there's Medicaid, which then has the Medicaid waiver for DSPD that we're going to talk in length about. Voc Rehab helps one find work. We'll go through these slower. So see, I'm doing it, aren't I? I'm saying acronyms. Voc Rehab, guardianship is another one. There's recreation. We want to have joy with our kids. We want them to feel happiness and joy. So there's just a lot of different systems to navigate through. And so when I started, they just went into a blob for me. I'd think, well, I spoke to one lady and told her this. How come you don't know that? These agencies don't talk to each other. You have to keep track of what agency you're talking to, the name, and keep them separate, because they just don't talk to each other. And so it was very confusing to me. When my daughter was in high school, I decided to work for a post-secondary school, mostly because it was just a few minutes from my house. I could have just school hours, and maybe I could keep my eye on different services and agencies. And so I did that, and I started to notice a process, a way to access these, and even an order of how it works better. If you do this first, that helps with this, and it kind of snowballs. If you do it backwards, it can kind of, you can do it any way you want to, but I have found it easier to do a certain process, and we'll kind of talk about that. I also started to notice what was working for different families. Where were their successes? Where were the individuals that were exiting the school system? Where were they being successful? Who was being happy? Are the families happy? Are the children, are the young adults who are exiting the system, are they having a good life? Whoops. So I started to keep track of that, and as I went through different stages of working and increasing things that I was exposed to, I was able to navigate Katie through getting on DSPD, Social Security. I got guardianship. I got her a job that she loves. I am a little pro-work, I'll have to admit. I think that's the best way to go. I even got her UTA reduced fare card. I job coached her. You name it. I did the whole thing. And I really started to feel like all my duckies were in a row, maybe a little haughty at the same time. You know, I got it all done. Until December 10th of 2018, not just a few months ago. And my daughter had a massive stroke. And we were back to, she couldn't even roll over in bed. And it was devastating. We are learning to walk again. Do I push that? Here, she's getting better. She can't return to work yet. We're working on occupational speech therapy, physical therapy, and we were in the hospital 31 days. It was a really significant traumatic stroke. And was I glad that I had these services in place? I cannot even imagine. And she's doing good, huh? Mm-hmm. She's doing real good. She hates the wheelchair, but we're gonna keep going on this. So we were really, really glad that we went through these services. And I think that you will be too. It has brought a great peace of mind because I'm pretty exposed to different families and their different circumstances. I know that this will help you feel more peaceful. DSPD stands for, here's your first acronym. It doesn't flow off your tongue. I have to tell you that. You have to practice it. 5 DSPD. Think of a word association. I said to one person, think of police department for PD. And she said she's never forgotten the last 2 letters anyway. So DSPD, as it says, provides services. Oops, I think we did one too many. Oh, we got to go that way. Okay. DSPD promotes opportunities and provides supports for people with disabilities to lead self-determined lives by overseeing home and community-based services. We're going to talk about what some of the different services are later on, but some of the most sought after would be maybe supported employment, respite, day services. There's I could show you pages and pages of different services. Right now, my daughter's services changed because of her circumstances. She has to have 24/7 care now. And she was very independent previously. So we're going to get back to that. We're going to get it back. We have respite. That's probably what we're using the most. personal assistants, which I love because they can go out in the community and do things that every other average young adult would be doing. And we'll talk more about that too. She gets a massage once a week. I didn't ask for that. I think that's a little over the top. But holy cow, it helps. The anxiety that she feels, she has cerebral palsy, so her muscles are stiff. So the massage is really, I just would like to have it with her. So DSPD is services. It is not cash that will come to you. It is a budget on paper, and you will use that budget in several different ways we'll talk about. I notice as I've been visiting with families for many years that there's some myths. And let's just talk about some of those myths that are most commonly chatted about. You need to be 18 years old before you qualify for services. Not right. You can apply for DSPD at birth. If they have all of the eligibility factors, of course, you can't just, I really want it, so let's just get it. You have to be found eligible. And so that's an important thing. It's just not because we want it. You would be placed on a wait list, and those with the most critical needs will get off of the wait list. So it's not by how long you've waited, it's by those with critical needs. And we're going to talk about what would help to let DSPD know about. I'm pointing over to Callie to let Callie, if she's your wait list supervisor, there's different ones, things that you can update, and we'll talk about that later. So you can apply now and stay on that wait list for maybe not very long. My record is 9 months. The average is 5.5 years, but as soon as you start updating with some of your critical needs, that's going to, and we'll talk about what specifics right out of the DSPD guidebook that would maybe help. So you can apply now. I would. There is no reason to not apply that I can find. Here we go. There's not enough funding. Funding's been tough, and it is all dictated by the lawmakers and how much funding they vote in. And don't have a heart attack, Kelly, over this one. In January this year, just brand new, the governor released a budget of $28.4 million. They're talking about a new Medicaid limited supports waiver operated by DSPD, and they're estimating 2,000. But I would take that with a grain of salt because it's good news. This is definitely movement. This is in the right direction. There will be people, I'm relatively sure, that there will be people coming off of the wait list. I can't swear to the 2,000 because this is pretty much in the hands of committees and subcommittees that are hammering out the details. But this is good news. That's record amounts. So our little voices are being heard that this is important and we need it. So this is good. So there's hope. I'm already on the wait list, so all I have to do is sit and wait. No. There's some things you can do. You want to update your wait list supervisor with specific things. You want to send her specific things. How will they know if you don't tell them what's going on? And we'll go over the specific things too. Here's another one that people often put off or decide not to apply. I don't want to give up my rights as a parent. No, that's not going to happen. In fact, I think it's quite the opposite. You and your child will not lose any rights to DSPD at all. you're going to be a little more protected, and you're going to get supports and services. The actual community supports waiver says the program is designed to provide services to help those eligible and allow them to remain in their own homes or other community settings. They are able to live as independently as possible with supportive services provided through this program. As my daughter is on DSPD, I have a support coordinator, and we come up with a plan every year. And at first this was quite foreign to me, but it has been very helpful. They use a tool called person-centered support planning. And when we do that, we talk to Katie. This is her life. This is what things she would like to do. So they talk about what's important to Katie. Now, granted, sometimes that might be to have barbecue potato chips and olives at all times, or something really unreasonable. And so they do have another part of that person-centered support planning tool where what's important for Katie, which is where I would kind of talk, well, it's really important for Katie to eat healthy food and to stay healthy. So that DSPD is promoting, I feel like anyway, for individuals to live their own self-determined lives. It's not going to take away the rights of what this individual would like to do. I think it has empowered Katie to feel more independent through some of the services that we've used. It has not, it's just honest truth, it has not made her feel like she needs help with everything. It has done quite the opposite. It has empowered her. It has exposed her to more situations that I would be able to provide for her myself. Another myth might be the application is too hard. It was awful. It was really a nightmare, 11 pages long. Did anybody do the long one years and years ago? I complained so much to the state. I'd call them up every week. And this is a ridiculous application. I just complained and complained, because at that point I was starting to help a few families, until they said, Debbie, would you like to be on the committee to? Why, yes, I'd love to, because it's not that unmanageable now. It is about 4 pages long with other documents and evaluations and things that go along there. And my record time is 45 minutes, but the families had things all kind of prepared and ready for us to finish up a few things. Here's another one that I have found. Parents don't say this, but I'm feeling the undertones of it from families. If I need to ask for help, means I'm not doing a good job as a parent. I really have almost crying parents. I just feel so guilty. This is my daughter, and I should be able to provide everything for her. And you're doing a great job as a parent. You're here. You're wanting to do things in their best interest, help them to live the best life possible with their needs and abilities that they can move forward to. I think you're doing a fantastic job. This is a good one. I get this more than half of the time. These are all reasons why people don't want to apply for DSPD. My child is going to live with us forever. Tell me how that's going to happen. What's your secret? How is that going to happen, that your adult child is going to live with you forever? I'm not going to live forever. I'm older than, I don't have the energy I had 30 years ago. I should be an empty nester. I am not an empty nester. My other children are wonderful. They would be most willing. But you know, our other children get married. They get married to people that we didn't choose. And mine chose wonderful. They're all going to watch this. They all chose wonderful spouses, but they have a lot of children. They have craziness. They move a lot. For me, it's hard for me to navigate through these processes. Why would I want to do that for my other children for the rest of their lives? I just don't see that as the option for me. And when we talk about your special needs child leading self-determined lives, well, my daughter would not be particularly happy living in a home with 13 children, well, altogether, not one family, 13, but 6 and 1, 5, and we have a lot of kids. And she likes routine. She likes things to be the way she likes it. She doesn't like loud voices. She doesn't like screaming and chaos. She would not be happy in that environment. She wants familiar surroundings and the way she wants it. And she has every right to have that. I'm not going to force her to live somewhere she doesn't want to live. So I have a dream. This dream could change. It's changed several times, but my dream is, at this moment in time, when I'm 70. I picked it out of the hat. I figure when I'm 70, I will change things around with her services with the DSPD and maybe move more towards supported living, maybe companion services. There's even chore services. And she can live in an apartment. Maybe it's something that I'll buy, a townhome, maybe a duplex. I'll be in the other, I don't know. Maybe she'll get married, maybe she'll have roommates. I don't want her to be lonely. I want her to have people in her life that are important to her. So I haven't quite figured that, but she'll be in an apartment, and hopefully I'll be still young enough to tweak it. Oh, this is not working. I think we need to rewrite and work through this little glitch. And have her get her own little routine going and things the way that she's happy with, and supports that will help her to reach those things that make her happy. And then I can die happy. I don't plan on it anytime soon. But why would we wait until there is a crisis? Some of the hardest I don't know what to call them, cases, clients, families that Callie and I have worked together on is when nothing has been done as far as services, not even on the wait list, and there's a tragedy. And there are tragedies that will be very sad. I hope that never happens to any of us. I hope we all do live forever. But I am not prepared to put my money on that. Things will happen. And why would we wait for a crisis to then, in the midst of a crisis, say, oh, okay, I think I better start this now? I am very happy we got our ducks in a row before our most recent crisis. It would have been financially, emotionally devastating to our family had we not. And that was just December. It came out of nowhere. We had no health issues since her birth. None, not one. So it was really a difficult thing. But to have these services in place where I could simply call and change the plan that we had somewhat and rearrange the type of hours and get more hours because of our circumstances was a whole lot easier than starting from scratch and going through it. So those are my reasons. We all need to apply. I think that we should chat about some of the most. Now, as I showed you, there are a lot of services. But why would you even want to apply for DSPD if you don't know what they can do for you? Why do you need it? So I can't talk about every single service because there's a lot that I didn't even realize. I was looking it up today, and it's just pages and pages, and you can do a little research on it. But the most common that families ask for to start with, or stay with maybe, respite. Respite is keeping your adult child safe while you take care of you. That taking care of you could mean you need to work because you need to take care of finances. It may mean that you're taking care of aging parents. Maybe go on a date with your spouse. Rediscover what color of eyes they have. It could be going away from a weekend. That was my old dream, is to go away for a weekend. I had never once been away from my daughter till she was 22. Bad idea. Don't do that. Don't do that. Our marriages and our relationships with other people can suffer as much as we love our angels. Sometimes they're hard, and sometimes it can pretty much suck us dry. And we need to take care of ourselves so that we can do a great job taking care of them. So I was really stubborn about this. I was very stubborn about going away. And that's even after I had services. I just was reluctant to do so. When I meet with families, I chat about this, and the moms are going, and the dads are going, yes, we need to go away and do things together. Keep your relationship strong. You might have some other children with needs, and sometimes the siblings have to take a back seat to the care and the efforts that are put into your special needs adult child. I don't know if I'm saying everything politically correct. Sorry if I'm not. And I think we as caregivers go through different stages. I'm different now than I was 30 years ago. I'm more tired. I want to do different things than I did. I would just suggest to stay in front of caregiver burnout. Don't wait, and I think I was actually a blob on the floor who couldn't carry on a conversation with anyone, pretty much. It's rough duty sometimes. As much as we love, sometimes our angels, as with our average young adult children, they're not always angelic. It can be hard. Their needs are great, you know. So be proactive. Get in front of it. Don't wait till you have to be reactive to a tough situation. That's my suggestion on respite. I think it's a very good thing. Another one, this is not actually a DSPD code, but it's what was listed in a very old guidebook. But the actual codes for them could be personal assistance, it could be supported living. It's things that will help. I use this. I use the self-administered service. We'll talk about what that is. Where I hire who I want, I train them, I do all the paperwork, the background check, I do all that. I hire a lot, actually. I don't just hire one. And this I don't call them employees. This is my daughter's life. I think it's very weird to have an employee or a staff or following her around. No. I think that's unnatural. I would prefer it to go as parallel with an average young adult life as possible. I know there's health issues and every family's different, but I have enjoyed Katie calling up a buddy. She knows they get paid. She doesn't care because that's where she has fun. So she doesn't mind. And they do the things that an average young adult would do. They will go with groups on social outings. They'll go to movies. They'll go out in the community. And we have gained, well, not me, well, a little bit me, but my daughter, Katie, has learned so much from her buddies because they can do things with her I can't do. I am not going to take her camping. I'm sorry, that's just not going to happen with me. But she's had buddies who are really into that. She's had buddies that are really into art. Well, she has CP, her fine motor is not good, but she doesn't like it. But she knows now, after all the art projects this buddy was so excited to do, and she participated-ish in it, but now she knows, I don't particularly like art, but she's been exposed to it. It's another life exposure to things. So it wasn't exactly successful. She's not an artist, but she has been exposed to new and different things. I encourage my employees or buddies to share what they know, narrate life as they're with her. I don't want them to just be quiet and wait for Katie to have a conversation because she probably won't. So narrate everything that's going on. When you're in a car, talk about, oh, how many red lights are we going to, just talk, narrate everything you're doing. And she has excelled in so many areas I never deemed possible. Her social appropriateness, I think, would have suffered if she would have stayed home after she exited school and sat on my sofa alone. I don't think that she would have had the experiences that she's had without the assistance from buddies. You know, I just love employment. I don't care if it's 1 hour once a week, or it's oftentimes not 40 hours a week. It could be, but it depends on your child. But I believe in working. It helps the individual feel a part of life, a reason to get up in the morning. A good job match is important. That's true. And in my opinion, for Katie, for my daughter, next to going to Disneyland, the next best thing in life is going to Costco to get free samples. That's a good day. So why wouldn't we get her a job, which sounds really easy. I just didn't walk in. We're talking 4 years of job coaching and working on Department of Health and all kinds of stuff. So I'm saying like, oh, I'll get them a job. No, I know there's a lot more to that than just, oh, go out and get them a job. But long story short, we worked very hard, and I have done job developing for other individuals. Get them a job that they love. This is a whole nother workshop, informational evening about working. I think it is the best respite of all is to work. And yes, you can work and keep Social Security. You want to know the rules, and I have great places for you to go to learn the rules. But yes, my daughter has actually worked 12 years at Costco. We haven't lost a dime of Social Security, but we follow the rules exactly. And she did go from SSI to SSDI, so rules kind of are changing. I mean, they don't change, but what category of Social Security, I guess you could say, is different. So when you are on services for DSPD, one of the first things or decisions that you would make is how do you want that budget to be implemented? Do you want to use a company, a private provider agency? which is a company that provides a service. Do you want them to come in and send a respite worker into your home? You pay, the DSPD funding will go to them. They do all the paperwork. It's a little easier paperwork. You don't have to find employees, but then you get the employee they send. That's sometimes not a bad thing. They're wonderful people, work for different companies. I have lists and lists of companies that are authorized to provide all kinds of services through the DSPD funding. If you want day services, for instance, from a provider, I would go visit them first, unannounced. I wouldn't even tell them you're coming. I would go and just show up and see what it's like. Do you envision your child enjoying that? Then maybe talk to the person who's running it. But I think it's a nice thing to just see what it is unannounced and see if it's a good match. I have been using the self-administered service and that new acronym, SAS services, where I find, hire, train, do the paperwork for individuals to provide those services that I've been authorized by DSPD to do. I send the timesheets that they have filled out every 2 weeks to a fiscal agent. There's 3 fiscal agents that are authorized to write the check out to your employee. So you don't have to write any checks. You don't have to figure out taxes. The fiscal agent does that. And you have to follow the rules and the criteria for each of those services. You need to stay in the guidelines too. I thought the hiring packets were kind of hard to navigate through. There's like 17 documents you need. But I've done a few cheat sheets on how to hire someone. If you want my little insights, it seems to, I make it so that I make a little packet and the new employee, I make a blue highlight, that's where they sign. The pink highlights where the parent signs, and this sheet that says this document goes to this place, this document goes, and so it's I think it's pretty user-friendly than just trying to navigate their book of instructions. I like step 1, 2, 3. Don't give me a book to read. I just want the boiled down version of everything. These services that are provided either way, and you can use a combination of the two as well. You can use day supports when there's nothing to do and there's no more school bus and they need to do something every day. Day supports might be the answer for that, in which provider company is, I don't know if that's the only way, I believe it is the only way you can get day supports. You can use those by day and then have respite through the SAS program, because they'll be coming into your home and you might, just depends on your comfort level and what you feel most comfortable about. I find my employees, my buddies, in lots of different ways. Usually I've worked where I have found them, I have hired them. Katie, this is your new buddy. This is her life, this is her she chooses her own now. She'll come home from an activity and say, hey, there was this really nice person to me. I think I want to talk to her about being a buddy. So I think that's the way it should be. Took a long time to get to that point, though. This is a lot of years of using DSPD to work up to that. But I think that's probably the way to go, is let them have a say in who's going to be with them. I think that's important. These services are paid by a Medicaid waiver. How to explain? I like an explanation I saw at a workshop. Most folks that need Medicaid need this many services. But our kiddos need this much services. So they waive the smaller amount of services to allow the waiver of Medicaid to come in and provide more services. that's the way my mind wraps around that whole thing, is that's what a Medicaid waiver is. The state has many different Medicaid waivers. You do not have to have your young adult child be on Medicaid to apply. You don't have to wait for that. They don't even have to have Medicaid to get services. There's a type of cooperation with DSPD and Medicaid if they are under 18, and after they're 18, the family's resources and assets don't count. So to get Medicaid after 18 is quite easy, especially if you do Social Security first. That's a whole nother workshop. So if you do Social Security first, then Medicaid at 18 and guardianship, Medicaid is 5 minutes. Literally, don't do it online though. Just a little hint, don't do it online. It will be in La La Land forever. Go to a Medicaid outreach specialist. Every school district has one. And I can kind of give you some information on that. So you don't have to wait till they're on Medicaid to apply. So far, Callie, have I said anything too goofy? She's our DSPD representative. All right. Too many. One has to be eligible to apply. Well, you can apply and not be eligible, but you probably won't get on the wait list. So we'll talk a little bit about some of the eligibility factors. When to apply is as soon as you can, is my response to that. Most of the families I work with anyway are eligible under intellectual disability. If a young adult has Down syndrome or Prader-Willi, it doesn't matter. That is not the qualifying eligibility factor, the fact what their diagnosis is. It is intellectual disability. That's how oftentimes intellectual disability and other conditions, which could cover cerebral palsy, autism, and epilepsy. Acquired brain injury and physical disability is actually a separate waiver, and there are more waivers than this, but these are typically the most. So my daughter qualified under intellectual disability, which is typically an IQ of 70 or below, or other conditions. The disability must have an onset before the age of 18, or I just read for intellectual disability or ID, age 22. I'd never read that before, but this was said. The primary disability cannot be mental health. It's not to say if they have a mental health issue, they don't qualify. It's just not their primary disability. Because a lot of times our kiddos do have mental health issues that goes along with some of these. During the application or eligibility determination type of service, you will also need to show deficits in 3 of the 7 activities of daily living. And those activities of daily living are self-care. So you want to show that they need help in self-care. I could go into these in detail, but they're kind of self-explanatory too. If you need little tips on it, I've got all kinds of little things for you later. Deficit in learning, that's usually goes along with the whole thing. Deficit in self-direction. Deficits in receptive and expressive language. Mobility, capacity to live independently, and capacity to become self-sufficient. Those are the 7 activities of daily living, and they're really not hard to prove. I have all kinds of little cheat sheets if you want to look at them. And I don't think DSPD has been, they haven't made it difficult to get through those. I haven't noticed that they have ever made that a difficult thing to show the deficits in. To apply, I just noticed they have been running a pilot program called My Steps. I'm just a little familiar with that, but not enough to get up and say that's the way to go. I don't know if all the kinks or if there were any kinks, it might be smooth sailing, but I am most familiar with this method of applying. So this method of applying is step number 1, call the intake line. This is less than a 2-minute phone call.
I was just going to say, I'll leave the intake line little.
Awesome. Great, thank you, Callie. This is not a scary phone call. Such anxiety to call these agencies. We sweat bullets. We'll do dishes that we haven't done in 2 years to get out of making that phone call. What is it about making phone calls? I feel the same way. It is a paralyzing feeling. Everybody's nodding their head. It is. I can't explain it myself. I can call and help. I don't call for you, but I will hold your hand. And sometimes I will speak even with you next to me so that you get used to it. And I can do it for other families, no problem. I call on my daughter and I'm frozen. It's just a strange thing, isn't it? This little phone call is easy. They are only going to ask your I can say child because you could have a child. It may not be a young adult yet, depending on the age. They're going to ask the name, social security number, so have that kind of handy dandy, mailing address, and your name and address. They will also say what is the main disability. You don't have to convince this person on the phone. They're nice people. They are not the decision makers at that point. You just say intellectual disability or autism or whatever the disability. You don't have, well, go into big detail. You don't have to. It's 2 minutes, you're done. And don't stress over it. I'm serious. Don't stress over it. A lot of folks are, then they will say, okay, we're going to mail you, snail mail, it's better now, Form 1-1. It's just a little one page. It's everything you just said to them on the phone, again. And then you either scan and email that back or snail mail it back. And I've had family goes, I have sent that up. That's not the application. That's Form 1-1 is the application to get the application. I'm not kidding. That's really what it is. So if you filled out a 1-page form, that's not the application. So I have it all here if you want to see me after. You still make the phone call. You still do the steps, but you can get started on it if you would like. I have a few cheat sheets here too. Callie's seen them. She knows. Yes. So that's not the application. You will want to start filling out the eligibility documents, and you hopefully can get this done within 90 days after that first phone call. So, but don't put off the phone call. Just do the phone call. Those documents can consist of 4 pages of the social history. Easy peasy. You can call me anytime. I can chat you through it. We can do a home visit or we can meet here. I am more than happy. I have a few cheat sheets for question number 8. I think that's kind of an important question where you're supposed to list all your problems in these teeny little boxes, which is fine if you have no problems. But if you have no problems, you're probably not going to get services because it's those with the most critical needs. So those little boxes, you need to prove your critical need. So that's the time that you think of your worst day. I don't advocate for you to live in that type of world where you're thinking, woe is me, my life is horrible, there's this happening, she does this, she does that, just for that day. Just for that day of filling out the application, then take a shower and never think that way again, because you can't live that way day to day. But for that moment in time, think of your worst day, the time that was made of nightmares. And we all have them. I have them. They're horrible. But then forget it. Try to move on and think of positives after that. So I often will write C copy and then type up a little addendum. I have all kinds of cheat sheets for you on that too. There's a needs assessment. You just fill it out honestly. I mean, there's no way to say it differently. There's no trick to it. It asks you questions and you answer it, and it's determining what the needs are. You can't booger that up. It's just honesty on that. An authorization form where you'd write your doctor's information down, just a name and phone number and address. It's not a big deal. And maybe the school district or voc rehab, if you've any agency such as that, so that DSPD has the authorization to look into those records. I'm good with that. Knock yourself out. Look at anything that you want to look at, because I'm an open book. You know, I've got nothing to hide. Look at anything you want to look. I authorize everything, and I put the term or the ending date is when my child is 100 years old. For the next 100 years, you go for it. You can look in records. So I don't see that as a big deal myself. Birth certificate, get a copy of that, dig it out. Social Security card, make a copy of that, and a Medicaid card. If they're on Medicaid, they may not be yet, which is okay. The real biggie, though, that I find to be kind of the biggest hindrance, I know Callie knows what I'm going to say next, psych evals. Your psychological testing that is done in schools, if your child has an IEP, they've had a psych eval, because that's what qualifies them to have an IEP. They do it oftentimes every 3 years at the triennial, but many times you may not know you're signing a paper saying they're going to write IEP goals based on a psych eval done 6 years ago or 9 years ago, and that we don't need to test again. I was one of those. The school would say, it's time for us to test Katie again. Don't put her through that testing. It's not going to change. This is where we're at. This is what it is. Wrong answer. Testing equals money that I don't want to have to pay. So let the school test and ask for a copy of the testing, because you will need it to apply for many things. Voc rehab, Social Security, DSPD, and they like fresh testing. They like testing, it'd be nice in the last 5 years, so you don't have to bug every year to test again. The school will not test because you want that testing to apply for services. They don't care. They will retest if you request it because of an educational purpose. The only educational purpose I can think of is that maybe the IEP goals are not in line with what the psych eval or the IQ is. So if the IQ is super low and the goals are super high, they're not meshing. So I think, school teacher, that we need to request more testing so we can line up those IEP goals with the scores of the testing. You can get testing through private insurance. On occasion, voc rehab will test. I paid for testing $2,300 because I didn't know. Nobody told me. So I'm telling you, love the person who suggests school testing because you're going to need it. Not based, the IEP based on old testing is what they more often do. So check the date of when your last psych eval. Call the folder holder up for your child and say, I would like a copy of their most recent or even their most recent 2 psych evals, please. Click, print it out. It's not a big deal for them. You are not putting them out by asking for the psychological testing. Social Security will test oftentimes through the Disability Determination Service, DDS. It's not a bad way to go. Social Security pays for it, go for it. But they're not going to give you the results. You would think they would, but they don't. You have to, in writing, and I have a little cheat sheet for that too, have your doctor, your child's doctor request from DDS, not from the doctor that's testing. They're not, the doctor that's testing is not going to give you the results. It's Disability Determination Service, whose Social Security has paid. That's who you request the testing from in writing, and you have to stay on it. You can't wait 2 months after testing. They've sent it on to Social Security, and good luck with getting it out of them. There's forms. I haven't been successful getting it out of, you have to pay for it then to get it out of Social Security. So you have to stay on that testing. That's an important part of the application process. Another one is a diagnosis. DSPD has a form now, an ICD-10 code form that you can take. I like that. You can take to your doctor and they write down the medical coding number of your child's diagnosis. And you send that into DSPD. It can't be a doctor who's never seen your child before. You can't just say, hey, he's got autism, would you please sign this? They have to know your child and maybe done some testing, right, Callie? They can't just out of the dark sign this blank form for a kid they don't know. You've got to kind of be careful of who is diagnosing. If your child has a chromosomal type of deficit, or what would you call that, issue, and you had that done at birth, sometimes that will suffice because that's not going to change. So sometimes that can be instead of or in addition to, if you'd like. Do not wait to have all of these things in place before you apply. Think of it as this is an information gathering time. Don't put it off to apply until you have everything lined up. Once you have all of these documents and you scan and email them in or walk them in or mail them in to your intake manager, I guess is the correct terminology, and then you say, well, they never called me. Well, you have to learn to drive this. You call them. You email them. You call them and say, do you have it? We're human, they're human. Things can get lost. Things can just, I don't know, things happen. So ride it. You are the driver. You call them and say, just wanted to check to see if you have everything you need for the application process. Is there something else I can get? What you drive it, you ask, you talk, you call. You call. If you wait, it could be in La La Land. And it's okay, they're nice people. You can call them. The next step after all of that is in place, you would get a letter saying you're on, well, no, actually before the wait list, after you contact, then the intake manager will call you to do an ICAP. I don't even know what that stands for. It's just a 45-minute over the phone questions. You don't have to prepare, you just answer honestly. And after that, so if you've sent them all, yep, we've got everything we need, and it's been 5 months and you haven't heard, call 2 weeks later, call a month later, and say, I was just wondering if we could set up that ICAP, you know, and help these folks along. They've got a boatload of cases. So you kind of drive it through nicely. You don't have to be all mad and stomping around or anything. So then you get a letter saying, you are on the wait list. You will probably stay there forever if you don't call and update. Forever you will be on the wait list. And I'm not saying that in a mean way for DSPD either. Here are straight out of the guidebook, and a little bit of Debbie in there too. Once you're on the wait list, I would keep note, because once I started doing this, I'd waited 5 years because I didn't know, nobody told me. Once I started doing this, I was on services within 6 months. Now, I'm not to say that that's going to happen to you, but I would have been there another 5, 10, 20 years had I not started. So I don't know the critical nature of each individual who's applying. So I have to put that in there. But your chances are a whole lot better if you call your waitlist supervisor and confirm that he knows that you need respite. I don't know if this is going to change, but there has been recently years of what's called one-time respite. I don't know if that's going to shift around or not, but anything DSPD offers you, take it. Yes, please. Take anything they offer you. So you want to make sure that they know you need respite. And while you're at it, give a few things that have happened in your household. Take note of it, because I'd forget what I complained about the last time. I would call about every quarter, every 2, 3 months, or when there was actually, don't call and whine. No one cares that you had a cold and the flu. It has to be significant. Don't call and whine over nothing. Am I right? There are things that will help. You will probably in the past have gotten a yearly letter that will come to you and say, do you want to stay on the wait list? If you don't mail it back, you could be off the wait list. When I first started doing this, I would say more than half of the families I worked with thought they were on the wait list. I would call the intake line and they'd say, nope, not on the wait list. They didn't send the letter back. Send the letter back. And when you send it back, call your wait list supervisor, say, did you get the letter back? You know, things can happen with mail. Just confirm they got it back. You are driving. It's not the wait list super. You're not at their mercy. You are the one to drive it. Am I saying that too much? You would want to call in urgent needs. That's out of the guidebook. Things I could think about is problem behaviors that your child has, doctor reports, hospital stays, new medical concerns, issues to self, others, or property. This does not need to mean that your child maliciously caused damage. My daughter did not mean to blow up the microwave by microwaving that taco for 10 minutes instead of 1. It was not a malicious act. I would have reported it if it would too. But nevertheless, she destroyed property. That, if she burned the kitchen down, that might be something you'd want DSPD to know about. The next one is severity of the applicant's disability. Send to your waitlist supervisor any new medical reports. If they got new psych testing, send it to them. They're not going to call your teachers and say, hey, that's you to do. That's you to do. Any new, if there are, they're not going to take your child away. If you have police reports, incident reports, send them in. I asked one family, I said that, and they said, oh, we have some of those. They bring out a stack of police reports that deep. Okay, we could send those in. That might show some critical need there. They care about the caregiver. So when you have a significant health issue, if you're a single parent home, if you have more than one person that needs extensive care, you need to let the DSPD know that. If, for instance, when my daughter was, 14, I think, and I have 3 other children, in about a 9-month period, all 3 either got married, went to college, or mission something. They went somewhere. They all moved out. I was it. I had no more supports. My mother died. There was nothing else. I was it. That's kind of significant. It's all good things. They went to college. They got married. That's all good stuff. But nevertheless, they're not helping me with my child. So I had no more supports. That's worth making a phone call about. Am I right? Yeah. When your child's needs change significantly. My daughter's needs changed very significantly. In 1 minute, our lives were completely different. So when the needs of your child changes, when they exit school, that's a huge change. Have you told her, hey, we're exiting school, I don't know what I'm going to do. Am I going to have to quit my job? I have no supports. I'm at the end of my rope. Your worst day. You're thinking worst day. Right? I mean, I'm not lying. I'm just really giving it the truth. Then how long you've waited on the wait list is on there too. But that's going to stay on the wait list if you don't act. So I think there's I should have clicked. I'm so sorry if you were frantically writing it down. Those are the areas that I would suggest calling DSPD and letting them know about. If you don't know who your waitlist supervisor is, call the helpline. They'll tell you. Find out. Call me. There's a way. Don't just put it under the rug. There are good days ahead. You're going to get through this. You're going to make it. Your child is going to get help. You are going to get help. There's going to be a joyful life ahead. And when situations and tragedies that happen, we're going to get through them. It's going to take some effort to start with. Stay in front of it, and there's going to be joyful times. I guarantee it. Just get out there and hit it and get it done, and you will have a lot of peace. The first time I left Katie, I went overnight with my husband. I was back at 8 o'clock the next morning thinking she was going to be holding on to my... She went, oh, you're back? You know, who are we kidding that we can be the only ones in our child's life? So I went for a week. It was awesome. I laid in the sun. I walked in the sand. It was amazing. I had no idea that I could have times like that in the future. You can have times like this in the future. Look forward. It will be good. You're gonna have to work a little bit, but it was all worth it. It's all worth it. So do it. And there's people here at United Angel Foundation other families, other parents that are happy to help. So I think we're ready for questions.
Thank you so much, Debbie. That was great. We'd like to invite Callie up at this time. And then we'll open it up for questions for our audience here, and we'll open it up for questions from the audience at home.
I think we have hands. And we also have the folks that are watching this from home, and they can ask questions in that way. And Andrew and Mark can kind of feed those to us in between as well.
Okay.
So grab a question, anyone you want.
I think the lady
Okay.
in the back.
My question is, when you say call intake manager, are you assigned one person that you get to know and call?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
that was
Will
easy.
be assigned.
Can you repeat the question, sorry?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah. So she had asked if you get assigned one intake manager and that person will be in charge of the case the entire time. That is true, but that is once you send back that 1-1 form, that will specify who your intake worker is from that point. Okay, thank you. Yes.
What do you, she was going to cover something about guardianship. When our children turn adult and we still want to be guardians, what's that process?
It's another workshop.
Ask the question.
There are 3 ways that I know of getting guardianship. One is to hire 2 lawyers. It used to be 1 for a year or 2. Now it's changed again. I did that way. I was in a place in my life I could not deal with more. That's just what had to be at that time, and I did it at 18. I never needed it until my daughter was in the emergency room after her stroke, and there's a shot that they can get that kind of lessens it. No, she said, I don't want the shot. Fortunately, I had just made sure my guardianship papers were on all the medical records. Yes, I am her legal guardian. Give her the shot. So I never really needed to use it. And boy, am I glad I had it then.
Just
They
for that.
have to, that's what value it was to me. Medical decisions. I have horror stories where they just run away and want to live with someone. I don't know your family's circumstance or the disability of your child, but for me, I use that in that way. I have heard, what's a lot of the other reasons?
Financial.
Financial. I've had, just 2 days ago, a family say, my daughter just memorized my husband's credit card and ran up $700 online for Disney movies we already have. Financial. You can also apply for guardianship on your own on a website that I have listed. That's kind of a whole different topic. And then you can also take classes from Guardianship Associates where they will teach you, there's no charge for that, or to do it online. If you do it before, I believe the age is 23, 24, the filing cost is typically $350. If you do it before that age, it's $35. So it's a little cheaper to find it. And if you take Guardianship Associates class, you learn to represent yourself, and then you just hire the 1 lawyer for your child.
Thank you.
I just was helping a mom do it online, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I've gone to the classes even though I already have guardianship. I don't do well with cattle call workshops typically because I sit there and go, well, that's not my circumstance. And people have all kinds of issues in different circumstances, and I would find 90% of it didn't apply to me. So I kind of like the one-on-one thing myself, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be helping her, and I'd never done it before.
What was
I have a unique question.
Okay.
So it's kind of related to Social Security.
Yes.
So when my son, his dad died, so he has survivor's benefits.
Yes.
But I did the application for disability and he qualified, but because his survivor's amount trumped
Yes.
was higher amount,
Right.
they wouldn't honor the disability, but they kept in the paperwork for when he's adult. My
Right.
question is, we're at a point where he's really Medicaid would really benefit him. Is it possibility to say, I don't want the survivor's benefits, I really want the disability?
Because the CDBs, they're called, child death benefits.
Does that,
And depending on the deceased parent's work record, it can be significantly more.
he's at max benefit.
So the only way that would affect, is your child under 18?
Yeah.
We'll have to chat later.
Okay.
That is.
That's why I said,
that's
I knew it was a unique
I
one, but
hate to announce some big
That's
thing
okay.
if I don't know all the ins and outs.
You're good. Thank
Because
you.
there's a lot that could go into that, but we certainly can chat about it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
No, you're good.
an online question.
Yes, let's go for it.
Yeah, is this working? Catherine would like to know, she's interested in the respite care for a babysitter just a few hours a week. She's wondering if their their finances are going to be used to determine if they can get services at their age. Their daughter's 14.
No,
Even though our daughter's 14?
right.
Respite care is
Yeah,
for all ages,
yeah.
and it's not based on
And
the
it's not
parents'
based on the parent's income. I have every age and every wage. Every age and every wage.
I'm sorry, is anything based on the finance? I mean, what, when do they take that into account?
DSPD doesn't.
DSPD does not.
Social Security does.
And Medicaid does.
Yes. So after 18, watch the assets. 2,000 in their name tops. Tell grandmas and grandpas, please do not bestow money unless it's in a special trust fund that's protected from the asset limitation that's set up by a lawyer. Then sky's the limit. But I've had families lose all services, Social Security, Medicaid, DSPD, because if you don't have Medicaid, you don't have DSPD. Lost everything because grandma wanted to bestow. So you have to have conversations with your loved ones.
Okay, so I'm confused. I thought DSPD only worked if your kid was 18 years or older, but that's not true.
That's not
You can
true.
get respite care at
Yes.
any age.
Yes.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yes.
So, from my understanding, and please correct me if I'm wrong, so we've applied, we're in the, and we haven't received confirmation whether we're on the wait list or not.
Okay.
We've been in contact, I've been in contact with our
Intake worker.
intake worker. We are looking at this time for only respite care. Like our son is he's 2, so
Yeah.
he really doesn't need family services at this time. We aren't looking at Medicaid because we can provide that eventually. Yes, of course, and that's why we've
Yeah.
started this process, or I started this process. I'm bringing him along with me. But from what I've heard is if we are only looking at respite care, that maybe we don't get put on the wait list as long, or am I incorrect in that? Are we still looking at,
So there is something that we do when we pull for the ongoing funding. We use 15% of the funding to just pull families that are just looking for respite. Like when we do the intake process, we'll ask you kind of what services are you interested in. And a lot of times respite will be listed there, behaviorist, sometimes group homes, that kind of stuff. But if the case just has respite care as the interested service in, we use 15% of our funding every year to pull off those families. Typically, what I've seen from the past 4 years I've worked there.
so what's the best, like, do I basically talk to my intake
Intake
provider
worker.
and just let her know? Because, like, for me, I'm at that point. Like, I am with him 90% of the time,
Yeah,
you know, and
need a
we
break.
have a daughter who just got married, we have a daughter who's going on a mission, and so we're at that point that
Yeah.
we don't have those services available,
Yeah.
you know, and so I like going for a weekend would be wonderful for
Yeah.
us, but it's just not feasible right now.
Yeah.
So,
I understand, absolutely. Good for you for starting at age 2. Yay.
Yes, good job. One online one, then I'll get back to you after.
So Dana is wondering, to qualify, at what age is a psychological evaluation needed? She has a new baby with Down syndrome.
Yeah. So at the age of 7, we require for the psychological evaluation. Before then, it's developmental assessments. So you can get those from like early intervention, kids on the move, that kind of stuff. So it's, yeah, so age 7 on, we kind of require the psychological evaluation. Okay, I'm gonna,
I kind of forgot my question.
oh no, you're fine.
But I know I'm doing something wrong because I have been on the wait list for probably 4 years now.
Okay.
And my child is completely disabled.
Mhm.
And so I just a random question, do you guys provide services as far as like coming into the home? My daughter is 5 next week and she's like almost as tall as I am.
Yeah.
And do you provide services as far as helping me giving her a bath and things like that, or carrying her like
That personal assistance, yes, that
Okay.
would provide that.
That's personal assistance.
If she were on Medicaid, but at that age, she would need to qualify for Medicaid based on your income and assets. But Medicaid has home health that would do that if you were on.
We recently just got on the medical complex waiver.
Okay.
good.
And so
That's great.
that's life-changing. And so I don't know, I just feel like, dang, I'm doing something wrong if I've been
Because you don't feel like you're getting the actual services.
Yes.
I would suggest to call the intake line, find out who your waitlist worker is. I also left my card over there, so you can call my direct line if you want. And then with the Medicaid complex child's waiver, could they apply for home health at that young of an age?
I hate to answer that because I'm not certain.
Yeah, I'm not certain
I
either,
have
but
another little suggestion too, family to family. I have the phone number in my records. I have called them before. They're on a skeleton crew. On behalf of other families' situations, I've called them with very difficult, complex issues with medically fragile issues, and they've gotten back to me with the right answers. They were extremely helpful. I chatted with Jody at Family to Family. She's been very helpful because that's a kind of a different type of maze to work through.
I'd also call your waitlist worker though, and just make sure that they're ranking accurately on the waitlist and all the needs is up to date on their assessment.
With SSI, is that based off your child's income or us as parents?
At 18, they are their own household. So your assets, they're not there. It's none of their business at that point. Anything in their name is. So the asset limitation is 2,000, not 2,025, as I've had happen, and then you have to repay every month that you got the Social Security. I've had folks over $25 have to pay the last 10 months. Social Security for SSI. You are not applying for SSDI, you are applying for SSI. SSDI is for those with a work history. So you are not applying for disability unless you have a work history.
So Jessica would like to know if there is a way to find out what information the DSPD has on file about the child's disability, so that they can know what they need to update them on their condition.
Yes, DSPD won't mail you all the documents we have. You have to request that through like a HIPAA protocol and all that, or through a grammar request. But what we do is we take your call and then we'll review the needs assessment questions, and then we'll say, this is what we have marked. Do you think that there's been any changes? And so they'll say yes, this and this. And so that's kind of how we review their case with them, typically.
Are there any more questions from our at-home or live audience?
We have a few more from at home. Michelle is wondering, if you find yourself faced with moving to another state, is there a certain process to go through so that you don't have a time lapse in services? how does that work for other states?
Start over.
You
Start
start over,
okay.
yeah.
There's a few websites, I can't think of it off the top of my head, where you can click on the state and start researching it. But every state has a Medicaid waiver, but they're all called something different.
Gotcha. Thank you. And then Natalie is wondering, her child receives Social Security income, but she'll probably need minimal, if any, support as an adult. Should they apply for DSPD just for the childhood needs?
I would.
I would just
I think
apply,
it's, a personal preference, because I don't know how you could know for sure if they need help now, why wouldn't they later? But moms know their child best, so I'm not questioning that, but I don't see a reason not to. If they're eligible, they won't get services unless they prove the critical need, though.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then one more here. Megan Brown is wondering, you keep talking about the DSPD and eventually Medicaid. Does this mean that they go hand in hand?
Yes, that Medicaid pays for DSPD.
So once the, like if your kid is underneath the age 18, they'll automatically have Medicaid through us. If the kid is over the age 18, then they will still have
Qualify on their own.
And then Tamara would like to know how to start the DSPD process. Is there a number to call to get started? It's right up there. Awesome. We'll send her that information.
Any other questions from inside here?
Sorry.
Yes.
So I'm confused. So our son's not on Medicaid, but we are applying for DSPD, which means that he will receive.
Medicaid once he receives DSPD services and is off the wait
It's
list.
a magic wand.
Okay.
I don't know, it happens.
So then when we go in basically to his doctor's appointments or anything like that, are we going under Medicaid or are we going under our private insurance?
That I don't know. Do you?
If, like, once they're in services is what you're talking about?
Or is it paying only for services for DSPD? I don't know the answer.
Or
to
is it,
that.
is Medicaid only paying for, say, we receive respite care?
Yeah.
Is Medicaid
I
just
feel like
covering the rest?
I'm not 100% on this, so I shouldn't be doing this on film. But I think they pay for medical stuff as well. I think because a lot of the families have a lot of medical needs, and that's why they apply for DSPD.
But I do have a
could-
place to get the correct answer. I mean, not that
Yeah,
that's
no.
not, but to verify.
Yeah, to
And-
verify. I would
Yeah,
verify this.
I have a great number afterwards we can share.
So what if, I mean, I know this may be crazy, but what if we don't want Medicaid, we want our private insurance? Like,
It can be a secondary,
okay.
and it sits there and does nothing,
Okay.
basically. I did that for a lot of years. Till I figured out, wait a minute, I'm paying $20 copays when I could be doing $4 copay, you know, what? Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Debbie.
We might have a couple other questions.
Oh,
here.
sorry.
Let's see, so we have two people. I need to post the phone number for the intake line, and I can do that. Yeah, I think most of
the people that are asking questions now are asking questions that were earlier in the presentation, but they couldn't see the slides. So United Angels will end up sending out these so that everybody can view those. The phone number, just to repeat it, for the intake line is 877-578-0084. But what they're going to do, if I remember right, is they're going to send you a form that allows you to apply. That's the Form 11.
Call first.
Yeah, so you call that number, they'll give you a Form 11, which is the application to apply. And then after that, they'll mail you or email you the packet, and you got 90 days to fill that out.
Right.
Okay.
And yes, we will be sending the slideshow. So I know you have a printout here, but if you're joining us from home, I'll be emailing a PDF version of it for you. On your way out, we do have a blue clipboard over there. If you want to leave your name and contact information so Debbie can reach out to you to schedule one of these one-on-one consultations.
Let me show you a little bit. This is what I do when I come to your home. You keep this book. It goes through all the agencies, Social Security, Medicaid, guardianship, steps 1, 2, 3, how to do it, what to say, who to call, if you would like. That's what I do.
Thank you. There's also an application over here for DSPD, and then we have Debbie's business card and Callie's business card. And then if you're at home and you want to get put on our interest list, the last slide, if we can go to it, you can just send us an email with your information to info@unitedangels.org, and we will pass that to Debbie to get you on the interest list. So thank you everyone for coming. I hope it was beneficial. We enjoyed having you this evening, so have a great night. Thank you.
Quick question. So Debbie was